Yarny.
Hello! It's Halloween time, and of course, Halloween equals pumpkins. So we thought we'd give you guys a tutorial on how to crochet a pumpkin. So you can decorate your house with little or big pumpkins all around. This will be an easy project. You will be shocked at how easy it is to whip up a crochet pumpkin after this video. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We have a ton of cool content coming. Alright, let's begin. For this crochet pumpkin, you will need a crochet hook. Personally, I will be using this 4.5mm crochet hook. I will keep a ruler not too far from me. This will be used to measure the body of the pumpkin. I will explain further when we get there. I will have some scissors to cut the yarn, a yarn needle in order to sew in our project together at the end. I will have two different colored yarns. The first one will be this orange color. I will be using this for the body of the pumpkin. The second color will be this type of mustard-ish color yarn. This one I will be using it for the stem of the pumpkin. In order to complete this project, you will need to know the chain, the slip knot, the single crochet, the half double crochet, the back loop only and front loop only techniques, and the slip stitch. If you're unfamiliar with any of these stitches or techniques, feel free to have a look on our Yarny channel. We do have very slow and detailed demonstration of all these stitches and techniques. In this tutorial, we will make sure to do each of the stitches and techniques slowly at least once so you can follow along. Let's start. I will start with the body of the pumpkin, and therefore I will be using this orange colored yarn. I would suggest you to leave a pretty long tail, maybe 20 or 25 inches. This will be used to sew our body together at the end. So for row 1, we're doing a slip knot and chain 19. In order to do the slip knot, I will take the tail end of my yarn and put it on top of my fingers like this. I'm demonstrating the slip knot with a very short tail, but remember at home, please leave a long tail for sewing purposes. I will go take the working yarn, which is the side of the yarn that's attached to your ball of yarn. I will bring the working yarn on top of my tail end like this. And I will bring my tail end and make a loop on my finger. And I will bring the back loop to the front. And just like this, I have a slip knot. Now go ahead, take your hook, insert it into the slip knot. You can tighten the slip knot, but not too tight onto your hook so you can do your stitches. Now we will start and do 19 chains. In order to do a chain, we will wrap the yarn around our hook, which is called yarn over. We will pull the yarn through the loop that's on the hook. And very easily, we have done one chain. I will go ahead and do 18 more chains. So I've just completed my chain foundation with 19 chain. It looks basically like a bunch of V's stacked together. And so each V formation is one chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now we're on to row 2. And for row 2, what we want to do is half double crochet all along this chain foundation. In order to do the half double crochet, we will insert our hook into the third chain from the hook. And so we never count the loop that's on the hook as a chain. And so if we're skipping 2 chains, inserting our hook into the third, this means we're skipping this chain here, inserting our hook into this third chain here. So to do our half double crochet, we will wrap the yarn around our hook first, and then we will insert our hook into the third chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, like this. And now we will wrap the yarn around our hook again to pull the yarn back through the hole we just went through. And now, as you can see, we have 3 loops on our hook. We will wrap the yarn around our hook to pull the yarn through all 3 loops. And this is how we do a half double crochet. Essentially, we will be doing this half double crochet all the way until the end. And remember, we had 19 chains on our first row, and we skipped 2 chains to do the first half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the row. That means we have 17 half double crochet on row 2. We have done 1. We have 16 more to go. So I've just completed my row 2, and now we're going to move on to row 3. Remember, we always want to work from the right side towards the left side. And therefore, before we do row 3, we will need to turn our project around like this. And now we're ready to do row 3. For this row 3, what we're going to do is work on the back loop only, and we're doing half double crochet all the way. And so essentially, we're trying to do half double crochet in the back loop only. If I turn my project sideways like this, you can see all of the V formations, right? These are all stitches. And to identify the front or the back loop only, you differentiate the legs of the V, where the front leg, which is the leg that is closest to you, if I insert my hook and I pull onto this leg here, this is the front loop. Now, the back leg of the V, which is farthest from you, will be the back loop. And so no matter how you turn your project around, the back loop is always the side of the V that is farthest from you. And what we want to do is do half double crochet inside the back loop only all the way. Before doing so, we will need to chain 2, and now let's see how the half double crochet in the back loop only looks like. So we have our first stitch at the bottom of the chain we just did here, and what we're going to do is wrap the yarn around our hook. And now we want to insert our hook inside the middle of the chain here, so that the hook goes out the back leg of the V only. So if I compare it to a normal stitch, you would normally insert a hook under the whole V like this, right? But we are going to work with the middle section, inserting the hook in the middle of the V, coming out on the back loop only. Now we're going to yarn over, pull the yarn through the hole we just went through. And we have 3 loops on our hook. We yarn over to pull the yarn through all 3 loops. And this is how we do half double crochet in the back loop only. So we're going to go ahead and do 17 of those on the full row. I've already done 1. I have 16 more to go. So I'm just done with my row 3. And now for row 4 and onwards, we're essentially going to do row 3 all over again, meaning we're going to chain 2 and then do half double crochet in the back loop only, 17 times for each row. And this is where the ruler comes useful, because we essentially want the length to be double of the size of the width. And so my width here is approximately 4.5 inches, meaning that my length, I will want it to be 9 inches. So I will need to add more rows until it reaches 9 inches. So always remember to turn your project because we want to work from the right side towards the left. And we're essentially going to just keep adding rows and doing chain 2 and half double crochet in back loops only 17 times in each row. So I'll keep doing this until I reach 9 inches. So I am now done with the body of my pumpkin. Before we move on, I just want you to notice the ribs of the pumpkin there. This is achieved by doing the half double crochet in the back loops only. There isn't really like a wrong or right side because both sides literally just look the same. And I do want you to make sure that both of your tail ends are on the same side here, because the next step we will be sewing both sides together and we want both of the tail ends to be on the same side. So if you have one tail up here and the other tail down here, make sure you do another row so that both of the tails are on the same side. Now what we want to do here is essentially fold your piece in half like this. And the next step would be essentially to slip stitch both sides together so that we will end up with a cylinder like this. So before doing so, make sure you just do one more chain like this. And then make sure you align the rows perfectly. Just like this, I have my starting stitches here. And the way we're going to slip stitch is we're going to use the front loop of the piece of the yarn that's closest to you. And then we're going to slip stitch it with the back loop of the piece of the yarn that's farthest from you. So what does this mean? It's that this piece here is closest to me. I will be doing a slip stitch inside the front loop, meaning the leg that's closest to me. And then on the other side, the piece of the yarn that's farthest from me, I'm going to go grab the back loop only. So the leg of the V that's farthest from me. And we're essentially doing slip stitch all along. So let's see how this looks. So I'm going to insert my hook inside the front loop of the piece of the yarn closest to me. So I'm going to under the front leg, coming out in the middle of the stitch. Now on the other side here, I'm going to grab the back loop of the stitch, going inside the middle of the stitch and coming out in the back loop like this. Now I have my yarn, so I will wrap the yarn around my hook and pull the yarn through both of these loops. And I will pull the yarn through the loop that's on my hook as well. And this is how we do the slip stitch. So I will keep going into the next stitch. So again, front loop of the piece of the yarn closest to me, and then going to grab the back loop of the piece of the yarn farthest to me. Wrap the yarn around my hook, pull the yarn through both loops, and lastly, pull the yarn through the loop that's on my hook. So we're going to keep doing this all the way. Now that I'm at the end of my row and I've done all my slip stitch, I'll just end the row with a chain, and then I will cut the yarn, and this will secure my last stitch. I'll make sure to leave a long tail just like we did in the beginning. Pull onto the yarn and secure the last stitch like this. Now we're going to take a yarn needle, and what we're going to do is start doing stitches with the yarn needle from the inside of the project going outside of the project all around, so that once we've done the whole circle, we can pull onto the yarn, which will close off the cylinder. There's really no specific way to do this as long as the yarn is not too visible. So I'll just start with this. So I have my yarn needle. I'll simply just go with my yarn needle inside the project, going outside. Then I'll keep going inside the project to outside. Inside to outside. And just keep going all around. Now, once you've gone with the yarn needle all around, feel free to start pulling onto your yarn so that it shuts the hole. So it won't completely shut it, but that's where we're going to use the yarn again so that we sew it. So I'll go ahead and use my yarn needle to start sewing the hole shut just by going all around. Now that I'm satisfied that my hole is shut, I'll simply go ahead and put my yarn needle in the middle and bring this piece of yarn all the way on the other side. So now my yarn has disappeared from the bottom. So on the inside of your project here, go ahead and do a couple knots so that your yarn is basically secured. Now the bottom of our pumpkin is essentially done, and what we're going to do next is simply stuff our pumpkin. Normally we would use polyfill. I actually do not have any handy, so what I'm simply going to do is use yarn scrap. This is a really good way to fill up projects. So always keep your yarn scrap for this purpose. So now that our pumpkin is filled, what we're going to do with the top is basically the same thing as we did at the bottom. We're going to take the yarn needle and start inserting the needle from the inside and out, going all around the project so that we can then pull onto the yarn to tighten the circle so that we can sew it together. Now that I went all around with my needle and I have tightened the center, I will go ahead and just shut this little hole in the middle here. Now that we've shut the top, go ahead and insert your yarn needle in the middle section of the pumpkin so that the needle is going to come out on the other side of the pumpkin, also from the middle. So we're just going to do this one more time, going from the middle section here so that the yarn comes out on the other side, also from the middle. So we will pull onto the yarn tightly. This will create a better pumpkin effect with the top and the bottom going inwards instead of looking like a ball. You see the difference? So the bottom is going inward like this, and the top is also going inward. So once you're satisfied with the shape of your pumpkin, you can go ahead and do a knot on the top so that the yarn stays put. Now I'll simply just insert my yarn needle again inside my project with the needle coming anywhere on the side at this time so that I can hide my yarn inside the project. And I'll just cut on the side here. So now we have the body of our pumpkin. And we see all the ribs as well, which definitely reminds us of a real pumpkin. Now, the next step will be to do the stem. And we're going to use this other mustardy colored yarn. This will be a pretty short one. So for round 1, we're going to do a slip knot and chain 8. I would suggest you to leave a maybe 4 to 6 inch tail. So I'll start with my slip knot. Now moving on to chain 8. Depending on how big your pumpkin is, you can definitely adjust the length of your stem by doing additional chains or decreasing the amount of chains if you think this is too long. So the length of the chain will be the length of your stem. Now for round 2, we're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Of course, we never count the loop that's on the hook. And so 1, 2. So in this second chain from the hook here, I'll do a single crochet. So I'll insert my hook inside the chain. Then I'll wrap the yarn around my hook and pull onto the yarn with the hook through the hole it just went through. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'll wrap the yarn around my hook again so I can pull onto the yarn through both of these loops on the hook. So I have my first single crochet. And I will keep going until the end of the row. We should have 7 single crochet at the end. Now at the end of my second row, I will chain 1. And remember, we always work from the right to the left. So I'll turn my project and I'll just keep doing an additional row of single crochet. So I will do 7 single crochet on the third row here. Now for row 4, 5, and 6, I'll just keep adding rows of single crochet. Don't forget to always chain 1 and to turn your project before doing your single crochet. So now that I'm done with my row 6, I'll just go ahead and do a chain. And then I'll fold this project in half, just like we did with the body. And then what we want to do is just slip stitch the whole way, both sides together, just like we did with the body of the pumpkin. But this time we do not need to worry about whether we're doing front loop and back loop. We're simply going to do slip stitches in each of the single crochet on each side. So make sure you align your project perfectly and then insert your hook in both sides of the stitches, pull onto the yarn and onto the loop that's on your hook. And then keep doing this all the way. Now that I'm done with my slip stitches, I'll just do a chain so that I can secure my stitch. And I'll cut the yarn and pull the yarn through. And now we basically have our stem. I'll just go ahead and put this tail end of the yarn inside the project, pulling it on the other end here so I can hide it. Like this. And I'll just cut the other side. And now we have our little stem here, and it is a little curvy, which is perfect because the pumpkin stems are never fully straight, right? And the last step is essentially just sewing this stem with our pumpkin together. So I'll go ahead and do this. So in the end, your pumpkin will look like this. And this is it. What did you guys think of this crochet pumpkin? Let us know in the comments down below. We always love to read you guys. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, activate the bell button so you can be sure to not miss any of our upcoming content. Happy Halloween!